Good evening and welcome to this website chat on widening conflict in West Asia and its implications on India, which is a joint program of CASA and Gunner Shot. I have the honor to host four, three eminent speakers today on Gunner Shot. They are Lieutenant General Atta Hasnain, Ambassador Anil Trigunath, and General Gautam Murthy. Good evening, sirs, and welcome to Gunner Shot once again, and welcome for the special program on CASA, which we are doing it in a little different format.
Good evening. Thank
Right,
you. Thank you.
right, right. What I'll do now, sir, is I'll just give a quick rundown as to what has happened and what is the current update on in you know Gaza and Israel, the conflict which is going on there, and then we'll get on to what we have to discuss. Right. To start, okay, what this is the map of Gaza, which we are all quite familiar. But what is interesting is that Israel has done a three-point penetration, as shown by the red arrows. It has penetrated into the heart of Gaza city, and from the center where you see one big arrow and the following of small arrow, it has cut Gaza into two, and the indications are that it is likely to stay there for a long time till it changes many things, including the security architecture, what have you. Some people call it a penetration occupation also. Okay, then of course uh, there's much hype talk by Nasrallah, who's the leader of Hezbollah, was there, but he appeared as if he is not going to widen the conflict. So everyone thought this conflict was going to widen. So it raises a lot of issues and questions. Is it biding his time, or is it a deliberate ploy to keep out of this in a major way? But notwithstanding that, what we see yeah. What we see is that a lot of exchange of fire has taken place across the Lebanon border. And in the West Bank also, there have been strikes and what have you, and the West Bank is also restive. So, virtually, if you look at it, Israel is almost in a three front war. However, the main focus and attention is on Gaza. And what you see in Gaza itself, at the top, there's a military war going on. At the bottom, there's a humanitarian war going on. So it's two different, facets of this conflict which are at play out here. And in all across all capitals and across all entire Muslim world, there have been protests, violent protests, and everyone has allied behind Hamas. And there have been protests across Europe, Canada, and USA also, and UK, and many more are happening across the world. The entire Islamic world is up against the whole conflict going on, and it appears at this point of time that while Israel is fighting it alone, USA is behind it, and both these and some part of the Western world are solidly behind it. In fact, just about an hour back, I heard, in fact, I read that France is organizing an aid conference, right, to help the Palestinians out. So there is some kind of a diversity of opinion in the West. The West is also not simultaneously behind Israel. In this kind of a scenario, many questions come up. So what I'll do, sirs, is that I'll will take up 4 5 issues, and I'll request each of you to concentrate on the issue which I direct. Now, the first question which comes to mind is, while Israel has entered into Gaza and intends to stay there for long, there are indications which say that look, the larger, conflict or the wider conflict in Gaza might or might not happen. Hezbollah has not shown any clear intent of widening the conflict, and Iran has only stuck to using its proxies. Though these proxies have had some, fired some missiles and all on US, it's not very serious. It's not a thing, and it doesn't seem to be, you know, widening or conflagrating the way we all thought. So, in this kind of a thing, the first question which comes to mind is, where is this war heading? Militarily, and following the military thing. where does it lead politically? General Ata Hasnain, sir, I'd request your comments and your views on this because this is the fundamental question based on which we can formulate everything else.
Thank you very much, Jan Shankar, and my compliments on what an excellent introduction that you have done to this subject. My compliments to and Jai Hind to our entire esteemed audience and my fellow panelists here. Two questions you have placed: the geopolitical larger effect, and what is the military situation likely to lead to. Let's talk first about the geopolitical effect. We are living in post COVID times. Economies down around the world. No one is willing to risk. It happened in Ukraine. Ukraine also did not spread anywhere. I do not think that this conflict is anyone is looking to spread this conflict. Iran, Saudi Arabia, America, the Western world otherwise, none of them are keen to see this spreading around. I see enough efforts at the moment going on to hold back. Unless something so drastic happens that there has to be an inevitable intervention by third parties. Iran has made a lot of noise. Hezbollah has made a lot of noise. That noise is going to continue. I think the rest of the Arab world is waiting and watching. We saw the initial responses. They were not very warm towards the Hamas. And even now, politically, I think the governments perhaps may have a different opinion to what the public may have. Governments are generally not in favor of the kind of actions which Hamas has taken. Although on the other side, you are finding a lot of kind of concern which is being expressed around the world and in particular in Western capitals, etc., for the Palestinians themselves, and particularly the aspect of the humanitarian pause which is necessary to ensure at least the basics reach them. This is going to be subject to what the military situation is going to emerge in the next few days, I would say, not even the next few weeks. But I see Israel in a state of not desperation. They are desperate to go for a kill. They want to put an end to this. But the kind of strategy that they are adopting of not differentiating between the Palestinians and the Hamas is, I think, a self destructive kind of a policy which is going on, which they're following at the moment. Because it may not be possible to destroy Hamas completely. And in the process, what they're doing is they're destroying the Palestinians themselves, their whatever facilities that they have got, and they're not getting themselves any sympathy around the political capitals of the world. This is my political and geopolitical assessment at the moment. I think we are in a tenuous situation where no one wants to commit himself, but I do not think this war is yet going beyond this. Come to the military part in a minute only. Israel has got into northern Gaza. There's the whole of southern Gaza left, which I agree is less densely packed, but the northern Gaza is the dense area, the built-up area. They've gone in there. The seaward side is also been relatively addressed from that side too. That's the area from where tremendous amount of infiltration, wherewithal, etc., has come in over long periods, and that's something which the Israelis are completely guilty of not having looked at, not having had a watch over that particular area. Now, they've claimed to have destroyed a couple of tunnels and things like that. What is very clear is social media is not coming out of the Hamas side or the Palestinian side. So we are not getting too many news which are from their side. It is all Israeli one-sided news which is coming out. How much of success have they really gained at this time is very difficult to say. But obviously, this is an inch-to-inch battle which is going to take place. And we have seen this happening in Mosul some years ago, where terrorists such as the ISIS managed to hold off for 6 months against a whole large force at that time. So I don't think the Israelis can really be looking out for any early victory. Whatever signs they go in for, ultimately they have to tackle southern Gaza also. Are they going to displace the whole southern Gaza population into North Gaza to then tackle South Gaza? This seems to be a bizarre kind of a strategy which is going on at the moment. My last part, the aspect of Hezbollah, the Northern Front, Western Front, etc., I don't think it's too serious yet, but Hezbollah will continue engaging the IDF. because to a great extent they are keeping them committed in the northern border and making sure there's a dilution of forces which is available here. The aspect of evicting the Palestinians into Egyptian territory, Jordanian territory, etc., is absolutely, I would think, a bizarre idea, because if there's anything which is stable on Israeli geopolitics, is its relationship with Egypt and its relationship with Jordan. And if it's going to destroy those relationships, I think Israel will have to rethink its complete strategy in both geopolitics and militarily. I rest my case.
Thank you, sir. What you actually have outlined is that the strategy by Israel is quite blurred. We really don't know what the real strategy is. Because what has come out so far defies rationale. Everyone wants to end it fast, including Israel. But this war, as you rightly have pointed out, has got no quick end. And in fact, if anything, I see it getting complicated by the day. And this is something which actually the crux of what you brought out is this is a war which not many people want. But it has been thrust on all of us, and we have to live with it for quite some time. Okay, having said this, one thing for sure which Hamas has succeeded is that it has succeeded in drawing the focus on to West Asia and Palestine and pushing every other issue to the background in global politics, right, including Taiwan issue to a large extent, and the South China Sea, as also Ukraine. They've gone all taken backstage. Now, everyone in this kind of a scenario talks of a two-state solution, right from China to US to everyone. But the protagonists in this game don't want a two-state solution. Neither does Israel want a two-state solution, nor does Hamas want a two-state solution. They both want a one-state solution. And it's a whatever the one-state solution is a pretty macabre solution. In this kind of a scenario, how do you think things can be taken to peace? First, effect a ceasefire, and then taken to a political conclusion. And will the diplomacy in this world be able to guide it through? Your views, Ambassador Tribunai.
Thank you, sir. I fully agree with what General Hasnan said and your initial opening remarks. Uh, in fact, we need to also distinguish before we talk about a kind of a solution, which are mostly at the moment hypothetical. The two state solution has been on paper for a very long time. And Israel does not want it, as you rightly mentioned, the protagonist. And that's precisely the reason that Hamas was emboldened by them to counter first Arafat and then, of course, Palestinian Authority, which is totally decimated at the moment, as well as has lost a lot of its credibility with the Palestinian people. So, if you were to look at it in the psyche of the Palestinians, Hamas has emerged into a major interlocutor because it has stood for their cause. Secondly, Hamas also needs to be distinguished from political Hamas and militant Hamas. Now, militant leadership, most of it is, of course, in Gaza and fighting all those fighters. Even if they are decimated, let's say by three-fourths of them, the ideology of Hamas will survive and will create an issue at a later date, whenever whatever happens to the Palestinian thing. Secondly, this one state solution also Palestine does not want, for the simple reason that they are fearful. They are already, I mean, the whatever Arabic population they have in their country, they have problems with them, and they have not given them full rights as yet. And if more Palestinians come into their fold, then they probably are fearing that they might be outnumbered. That is very major concern for nearly every kind of an Israeli leadership, which is unlikely to happen. There was a third solution, which had been talked about for quite some time, which could have become a bit successful had Arafat himself not launched. That's called Jordanian option, which was like if Arafat, as you know, in 1970, when he went and fought against the king and wanted to remove King Hussein in Jordan while living in Jordan. And that's when the Pakistani general, Ziaul Haq, brigadier used to be, came along and helped them. And that's where the relationship has been so cemented. So Jordanians, despite having 60-70% of their population of Palestinian origin, including the Queen, are not going to get Palestinians into this. Egypt, of course, does not want neither the Palestinians nor the Brotherhood or Hamas, not in any case. No country except Qatar and Turkey are interested in dealing with Hamas. That is also for sure. Another thing that we have to see is that if we are looking at the expansion of this war, I mean, the war is not over as yet. We don't know which way it's going to go because, as the guerrilla warfare, I think we are also equally exposed at one time. It is very difficult. Now, this Iran, very often we talk of Hezbollah, Hamas, and Houthis. There are three proxies which are all activated at the moment. They are doing a little bit here, a little bit there. Americans they sent missiles, Reaper drone, they just put it down yesterday, the Houthis. Now, the fact remains is that they were created not for simply increasing Iran's influence, but to protect Iran in case Iran's vital interests are attacked. For example, if the Israelis were going after Iran, then they are going all out. I don't see at the moment, though they are championing the cause of Palestine, that Iranians are at all interested in unleashing the Hezbollah full force onto Israel. And these two wars, two front war, three front war, or whatever it is, can then escalate into a very major war. That's quite possible. Iran itself does not want to come out openly at the moment until and unless it sees the United States getting into the picture and got the assurances from the Chinese and the Russians. Then only Iran will be able to play any role. We know that Iran and Saudi Arabia are talking closely, and there is a possibility that Iranian President Raisi could go there. On the other hand, what we are looking at is that all the countries, Europeans, Americans, and Europeans are divided. I know France is, of course, voted with and many others who voted for the UNG resolution. And most of the countries are currently divided. Even US is facing the heat because you see, otherwise Blinken would not be running around in this region like a headless chicken, and he is being ill-treated by nearly everyone, including Netanyahu. But I think they have put their orders to them, respective to Netanyahu, that he cannot go beyond a point. That's why he's agreeing to create pauses, allowing humanitarian supplies, and eventually exchanging some prisoners here, both sides, and creating a ceasefire maybe in a week or 10 days or 15 days. That's what they are looking at the moment. I mean, the G7 meeting of the foreign ministers happened in Tokyo yesterday. A statement come out clearly from that. And Netanyahu is fearing, he's like sitting on a lion, and when you come down, the lion will eat you up. That's precisely his situation at the moment. Politically, he's completely sidelined by his own people today. They are begging for him. They are saying that you are not talking about it. You are our families and everybody is in the hostages which are there. So I think the hostages are the key to this. What can happen in this if they suppose there is a ceasefire, or let's say Israel controls Gaza fully? They will not be allowed to US from day one, knowing Israel's position. Biden himself said that we would not like them to occupy Gaza, reoccupy rather. And for Israelis have known it until 2004, 5, how difficult it is to rule Gaza. So they'll not be able to do that. So we come back to the same thing, that the solution to the Palestinian problem needs to be found, and found quickly. Otherwise, we are going to see more of the same. And there is not going to be any respite in this. So suppose he does it. One, their planning is, and everybody is talking to the Abbas, that he takes over eventually. They are non-congruous areas. And then in my view, what will happen eventually is that as Netanyahu is saying that we have continued to have the security of the region, is what he is doing in West Bank. It is divided into three portions: A, B, and C. So C is completely controlled by them, B is 90% controlled by them, and A only where Abbas is able to do something. So they'll create perhaps a zone D in Gaza. And eventually, then only good thing that may come out of this war at this moment, in my view, is that there might be some discussions towards some kind of a state of Palestine in future.
Right, sir. Thanks a lot for your views. I think you also given the same picture that it's not going to be a small haul; it's going to be a long haul, which is generally the common sense view which is prevailing all around. But an interesting point which you brought out is, which actually has triggered a thought in my mind, is that Israel went in with the aim of destroying Hamas, and that was the stated aim of the Prime Minister of Israel. And we now know it's very clear they can't destroy Hamas. Like, Hamas has got the political wing and the military wing. The political wing is sitting in Qatar and it can't be destroyed. It will be the military wing which would be destroyed on ground there, but it still doesn't, you know, finish off Hamas. And if Israel is this is the aim with which Israel went, don't you think that the political aim of this war itself is wrong? Because the aim, in my way of looking at it, having seen what Hamas has done to Israel, the aim for Israel should have been probably buying peace. How that could happen is a different story. And how what should have been the long-term goal of Israel is something which we have to rethink at this point of time. And that will give us the way to re-strategize as to how Israel and the wider world has to deal with this problem. So, your views on this, General Gautam Murthy, sir?
Well, thank you very much. And with deep interest, I heard all three of you speak. Uh, how does Israel look at it? Did they bite more than they could chew? Was this the right thing to do, the right method to get rid of Hamas? I think most strategic thinkers and military thinkers around the world are unanimous in this, that you cannot get at Hamas by aerial bombardment and artillery bombardment. It is militarily unsound, apart from it being horribly wrong, and you're killing so many innocents. At the end of this, to get about, you've killed over 10,000 as per the figures that are coming out, maybe maybe exaggerated, maybe true. To get at what, 60, or you've said that you've killed about 60 Hamas fighters. Now, the point about, as General Hasnain and has brought out, the northern front of Israel, Israel is being tied down. Hassan Nasrallah has spoken very clearly. He's betting on a Hamas victory. Ambassador Trigonayat has very clearly brought out that the three H's are being created by Iran so that they can use it for their own, in case their own interests are threatened. They have, Nasrullah is again going to make a public address, I think, tomorrow. The end of this battle, he says, will be Gaza's victory and the defeat of the enemy. They are very, very clear. The situation on the Lebanese front hinges on Israel's action in the Gaza Strip. There is no doubt about it. They are waiting. How would this expand? Would it expand? They are creating enough problems for Israel to continue to remain involved. But one thing emerged very clearly, and which both my co-panelists have brought out, is that there is a clear distinction between the political wing and the military wing of the Hamas. The political wing may be sitting in luxury in Doha, and it's a gut feeling that they did not know anything about the attack on 7th of October. Nasrallah, of course, has denied that Hezbollah has a hand. They said 100% Palestinians in terms of decision, execution. And if you recollect, there is a statement that he made, further amplifying it, saying even the Palestinians had kept it secret from the fellow Palestinian resistance factions in Gaza, let alone other resistance factions across the resistance axis. What does it mean? I take it to mean that the military wing has played its card and now has asked the political wing. Now the ball is in the court of the political wing to take this on. You brought it right up, as General Shankar has very clearly said. Ukraine, Taiwan, everything is now, uh, not in focus. The focus is only here because nobody wants this to spread. Nasrallah has accused the US of direct involvement in the war in Gaza and being responsible for the massacres being carried out. So, despite the US having Gerald Ford out there in the waters, despite them having everything, they are very much, they can be drawn into the war. So, there is a sense of a fear in everyone that this should not spread. Biden's administration has vowed unconditional support. The US is being torn apart by this unconditional support. Hamas is being conflated with the Palestine cause. And I guess at this moment in time, it cannot be helped. But then you are seeing a huge polarization in societies, which is going to work to highlight this war and take it to another level. I just hope this doesn't happen, because this war has become a verbal war, a war of ideas within various capitals. Take the UK, for example. All the allies, Armistice Day is supposed to be a holy day. 11th of November every year, when they lay out their poppies, when they visit the cenotaph, they visit all the war memorials. And on the 11th of November, you're having the largest pro-Palestinian stroke Hamas demonstration in the heart of London. So, where does it take us? To my mind, although the response has been muted militarily, Hezbollah, with its 1,50,000 rocket stroke missiles, is waiting on the wings, ready to pounce. They can cause a lot of destruction, but will they be able to move in and hold ground? That is a moot question. Massive media narrative is taking place on both sides. I watch Al Jazeera, I'm watching BBC, I watch CNN. I mean, and you can see the humanitarian aspect of this war has come up to the front. Everybody, including Israelis, are protesting against the what they see is the unstoppable bombing that is going on of civilian areas, although they understand, but at the same time, you're creating more and more people towards the cause of Hamas. Syria, Lebanon are 6 states. They cannot join, but in those states, as they call the so-called black holes of governance, the political, economic, social, everything, you are seeing the other actors coming into play. They will have to cede space for other players in the region. Whether this is going to result in a Pyrrhic sort of a victory for Israel, one cannot say now. It's just now almost getting it's into the fifth week. Tomorrow will be the fifth week of the day after tomorrow. And as the ambassador very clearly brought out, none of them want the Palestinian problem on their hands. They want it sorted out. But at the same time, General Hussein very clearly said Egypt is not going to accept refugees from Palestine. Jordan is not going from Gaza. Jordan is not going to accept refugees from the West Bank. So, is there a case for once the hostilities reduce for Egypt, Israel, and Jordan to sit together? Egypt, Israel, and Jordan to sit together along with the United States, along with Saudi Arabia, and allow the Palestinians in Gaza to be administered by Egypt remotely in a fashion, so to speak, because there is no leadership in Gaza today other than the Hamas. The Hamas has finished off all the PA leadership that existed. So, are you going to get a leadership there to help out? How is Jordan going to play a role in the West Bank? Jordan has washed his hands of the West Bank. So the next few years, Israel is going to be committed in a very, very bad way. This has opened Pandora's box, so to speak. It has woken up a sleeping giant, which is the Palestinian cause, and put it on the world stage. Thank you.
Uh, Thanks a lot, sir, for the way you covered the whole issue. What you brought out, and in fact, a common theme of all speakers today, all three of you, you say, I mean, it comes out very clearly that Palestine problem and the Palestinian people are an unwanted baby, a baby whom no one wants to nurture anymore, but a baby which cries hell of a lot, so everyone has to attend to it, right? That's the way it is. And due to the emotions involved and the ideologies involved, people have taken a very strong viewpoint, and it has polarized societies, it has divided nations absolutely down the center. And ideologies can't be defeated militarily. They have to be defeated by other means, which we need to talk of. And in fact, there are no military solutions possible at all. And this whole story has pitted nations versus nations, societies versus societies, and governments versus its people in many places, which Del Hassan in the first intervention did mention. Right. So we are not going to see the end of Hamas. We are not going to see Israeli victory, and this problem is going to go. And as it develops, and like General Gautam Murthy rightly said, and Ambassador Trignoyat also rightly said, Iran is not going to open out with all its guns because I don't think it has the capacity to do so. And its outpost Shia militias don't have the capacity to bring a solution to, force a solution on this whole problem. And the six states of Lebanon and Syria can't impose themselves on Israel, come what they may. They might not. There might be a third front, but that third front will not bleed Israel to death. So it's a complicated situation, which is destined to go further. But then, be that as it may, like the ambassador said, this war is still not shown its full colors, and it's got more mileage to go. So we'll keep discussing this war. But my interest is the second part, impact on India and India's response. These are the issues which we have to think of. Because anything which goes wrong can destabilize our rise and our growth. And that is what we need to actually look at. Okay, so with that, sir, my next set of questions, the next round will be focused on India. And the first question is, what are the strategic lessons we're going to learn from here? Why? Why? What are the strategic lessons? And something which today Hassan and I exchanged a few lines on. This war has set a new standard for terrorism and disruption. It's a new standard, and our friends across the border in Pakistan will be seeing, can we emulate it? Right? It will be their lifelong ambition to emulate it and cause incalculable harm to India, the way Hamas is trying against Israel. In fact, if you magnify that problem, say 10 times, 20 times in terms of geography, you come to a India-Pakistan situation. It's not different. Yeah, it's a different, difficult equation, but that's how it is. So if this is the new standard of terrorism that Pakistan wants to emulate, do we see a reinvigoration of or resuscitation of the problems Pakistan can pose to us, either in Kashmir or in Punjab or in the hinterland? And if so, how do we handle this? That is the issue, sir. Well, Hasnain, sir, since you are the best qualified amongst this, the question goes directly to you.
Thank you, Jan Shankar. A very well put together question, I must say. But before really commencing on it, let me say I will be very brief on the geopolitical side because I think Ambassador Anil Trigunayat is the one who deserves to have all the time to speak about that. The one thing that India should be looking at, definitely from a geopolitical angle, is that given our status, given our rise, given our G20 chairmanship, etc., I personally think these are opportunities which must not be allowed to go by. This is a time which India can perhaps play a very proactive role. And there are people like Ambassador Anand Regunayat himself, who's been long years in West Asia, with lots of other diplomats, who can step forward and actually be interlocutors in this kind of a situation. It is not often that you find a country which is respected by both sides. Even the Palestinians respect you tremendously. Israel, we have got a very strong relationship. So I think we are one of the better placed nations to actually play a proactive role geopolitically to try and resolve this and nothing else. Nothing more on that. Military side. This is the first time that I'm realizing how close the Israelis and Pakistanis are to their strategies, to their respective strategies. Now you'll wonder, what am I saying? You see, we have all these years been saying Pakistan's strategy is invariably irrational. They rationalize irrationality, and that's what their strategy. That's what their main actually achievement has been. The surprise in Kargil, conflict initiation tremendous, but no conflict termination even thought about. Conflict resolution be far away. This is the first time I'm seeing the Israelis fighting without a strategy. They have got no strategy in mind. Any professional, one of the best professionals in the world are the IDF people themselves. And they are the ones, I've interacted with many of them in Israel, who will always advise you that there has to be a balance as far as operations are concerned. There has to be a balance in these operations. You cannot go only for the kill. The kill in hybrid warfare, the kill has to be accompanied by tremendous amount of other widespread things, measures which you will take to balance that. They haven't thought through anything. All they're looking for is Hamas, how to decimate it. And then the occupation of Gaza. Now they're even talking about the occupation of Gaza. What I would say, I in fact coined a very catchy phrase for that. Gaza forever occupied and Israelis forever mobilized. If they have to occupy Gaza forever, they are going to be mobilized forever. 350,000. Can Israel afford to do that? They can hardly afford to do it. They have to be careful about this kind of thing. They have to think through this strategy. Now, with that, the similarity comes. You got an adversary who thinks almost similarly, would love to initiate, would love to do copycat operations. You know the kind of copycat operations which Pakistan has done. All the terrorist groups in Pakistan keep doing this day in and day out. You've seen how the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan has been copying all kind of operations and doing them against the Peshawar airport or against Karachi and things like that. So something bizarre can always be there. Although I say Jammu and Kashmir is well under control today. Punjab is well under control. Yes, there is a bit of a boil here and there, but it's not to say that there's such a major threat against us, etc. But all this can be brought to the head by something completely irrational. And this is exactly what happened with the Hamas. Their Act 2 was irrational, but when you look at it, if you see the larger, bizarre aim that they had of throwing up the West Asia issue, throwing up the Palestinian issue, there was a method in the madness, which the Pakistanis may be very tempted by, or not necessarily Pakistan itself, but all the organizations put together, the adversaries put together, may be very tempted by how to throw up the issue of Jammu and Kashmir once again, because this seems to have gone off the radar of the world after 5th of August 2019 and the subsequent measures taken over the last 4.5 years plus. You find who speaks about Jammu and Kashmir today is off the radar of all security issues around the world. It can come back in 5 minutes. All this can come back in 5 minutes, given that they strategize it in such a way, a bizarre step undertaken, a localized operation, an operation dealing with brutality, unconcerned on the humanitarian aspect, unconcerned about civilian casualties. And I can identify a lot of areas all along India's borders, and particularly the Jammu-Punjab border, where this kind of a thing can happen. And they would not have thought through how this will go beyond. The whole issue is what I always call the sharara, the spark. How to spark something. Now, the spark has led to a larger cauldron in West Asia at the moment. Fortunately, we are all assessing this is not going to go beyond. But in this case here in India, in the India-Pakistan context, this can become much more dangerous. We are nuclear armed, two nations, and this can really go different places. You saw what happened. 26/11 could have gone much beyond, except for the fact that India did not intervene at that particular time. But subsequently, our doctrine, our policy is different. And if this kind of a thing happens on our borders tomorrow, I cannot see any other option but for India to respond and respond very, very strongly. Now, this is as far as the Jammu Kashmir Punjab border is concerned. I'm also saying that we should keep our eyes on southern Punjab, Rajasthan, and Gujarat. These areas are not devoid of threats. We should be very, very careful in those areas too. And of course, the hinterland, because this kind of a problem can raise all kinds of ideological differences, ideological issues. Men and the people in the street who are not aware of these things, what it can lead to. This can have a huge impact on the communal situation in certain areas. And that's something that we should not allow at all. So there are lessons for us, and we've got to do a lot of wargaming. And this is something for CASA and Gunners Shot to keep coming together and keep wargaming this for the benefit of our public. Thank you.
Uh, Thanks a lot, sir. I think you made a couple of very interesting points, which we need to understand, especially in our context. Strategy of revenge. You spoke that Hamas didn't have a strategy. So did Israel. They also never had a strategy, but both of them in common have this strategy. At this point, this strategy came to me just now as you spoke. I call it the strategy of revenge. The strategy of revenge does not look beyond a point. Something like what Musharraf did in Kargil. He didn't see beyond the point of cutting off NH1A and expecting intended consequences which were quite unintended in the end to him. So similarly in this, it's just that sharara. You put the spark up and then see what happens later, and we see. So that is absolutely, and it could lead to many more consequences in an Indo-Pak situation where both of us are nuclear neighbors and both are strong armies. Right? Whatever we may say or not say, Pakistan army has been training with half the armies of the Islamic world and China, and they do pose a problem to us at some level or the other. So this issue of irrationality coming through is quite high. So I think what you rightly said, wargaming, we need to forestall it, and we need to forestall it geopolitically also, and we need to talk about it and do strategic signaling to Pakistan to forestall it, to so that the consequences of an operation of this kind are well known to them, and we cannot. I mean, so that it becomes unaffordable to them, and we also need to make them understand this unaffordability in the light of what is happening to them on the Durand line, right? And in fact, actually speaking, at 8 o'clock, I'm going to discuss the sandwich between Taliban, TTP, and Pakistan and what's happening there following this, right? So this is something which we have to put across, and I think we need to think a lot on this issue. The next major issues which you stoke called opportunity. I agree with you that there's a tremendous strategic opportunity which has opened itself in this, because India has good relations with Palestine, the Arab world, and Israel. In fact, if there's any one country which can play both sides of the game, it is India. But however, we started this whole thing off with a back foot. Whether intended or unintended, the message which went across to the larger world was that we had our legs on both sides and we were playing both sides, much to the detriment of the understanding of the other side. And we have, at some level, been misunderstood by both. So we have gone from a high positive, probably, I wouldn't say negative, but our stock has gone down to some extent. That's the way I look at it. I might be wrong. If I'm wrong, please do correct me. Now, after that, India seems to have taken a few steps. Like a prime minister has spoken to UAE, he's spoken to President Riasi of Iran, and seems to be some movement forward. How do you think India can retrieve the situation and probably take it to the next level of some conflict resolution or giving a way forward? Ambassador Trigna, it's your views on this. Can't hear you. Your voice is muted.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. In fact, if I may say that Hamas did have a strategy. It just
Okay,
did not
fine.
jump into. The reason is very simple, and they have achieved their objectives.
Yeah,
Whatever
that
happens,
I've said already. Yeah.
yeah. So, I mean, they revived the Palestinian cause. They have created the rift and hiatus between the Arab leaders and their street, which is very clear, as well as with Israel. So, at least, if not a full stop, there is a hiatus. All the famous projects of rapprochement like Abraham Accords, IMAC, and I2U2, IUS, etc., on hold for the time being. Most importantly, they were able to bust the myth of Israel's invincibility. For the first time, they were able to do that. So these are the set objectives, whether they had really drafted it or not. And you also mentioned in the beginning that there has been no connection. The fact is that they have also become equally strong. If every war, four wars, if you see in each war, we have seen Hamas becoming coming out far more smarter. This time, the technology that they have used is the basic technology of analog versus digital. I mean, that is also a very major thing that digital technology seems to have failed with those kind of hand gliders and whatnot. Very basic things they had come in and done the kind of damage they did. Perhaps they did not expect the same kind of returns which were unduly came to them. So that to that extent, so terrorist acts, of course, but at the same time, we have to study those for our own counterterrorism measures. That is very important. So as far as India's this thing concerned, I think that what I had in one of your discussions, I had again told earlier, we lack a communication strategy in the first place.
Hmm.
We need to have as a nation a strategy how to communicate what we are doing. And that's why what you're saying is that your stocks are come down a little bit. It's possible. The reason is that the first instance, what we did was absolutely correct. We condemn terrorism because we have a locus standi, having suffered the most from it. So everybody appreciates in India and outside, yes, India stood with them. Secondly, after 4 or 5 days, we have a statement from the spokesperson about India's standing position of two-state solution and all that. That was true. Most importantly, then immediately when Alali hospital attack took place, Prime Minister Modi spoke to Mahmoud Abbas, President Abbas, because we have never dealt with Hamas directly. We have never recognized them, nor have we condemned them as a terrorist group. So our position as far as Hamas is concerned that, so we continue to deal only with this, even though we do several capacity building projects even in Gaza. And there have been some Indians who have been working there as well. So he conveyed his disgust with the way, his sympathies, condolences, everything excellent. That was one thing. Then we immediately transported relief supplies via Egypt to this. Prime Minister since then has been speaking to nearly everybody who's somebody. He did not call Netanyahu. Netanyahu called him recently. Our foreign minister also did not speak. So these are the things that need to be conveyed. You know, we need to not forget, even if you do not bother about the local constituency, we have to remember that there are 22 to 1 ratio. And we have to have a balanced approach there. And I always believe that the most of the countries feel that they don't know what India really wants with them. When we say our relationship has moved from transactional to strategic, that means you have acquired certain strategic depth with those countries. And that's precisely the case. And I've been also writing about it, saying, and General Hassan and myself, we have been speaking in several places on the same lines, that we should be standing out and going and talking about peace. Because simply sitting in Delhi and saying dialogue, no dialogue, dialogue, diplomacy, and peace should be there and the people should talk and all, it doesn't work. They need vehicles and the vehicles of trust. India can be a vehicle of trust as far as these two countries are concerned. Despite whatever happened in the meantime, India still stands tall and can take a, at least can become an interlocutor, if not a decider in that. So I hope that now that Prime Minister has spoken to nearly everyone, including the Iranian president, who also said that India should play a role in getting the ceasefire. Everybody you talk to now, tomorrow, this Blinken and Austin are coming here. They are also going to talk to us about the same thing. And I have a feeling that Russia and USA both will support India if we take that step, apart from several regional powers. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, I think you put it out very clearly, sir, that India has a huge role to play. On that, I have had no doubt whatsoever. The question before us is, will India step up to that role in the right manner? because it has steps. Like you need to have an envoy there, special envoy there, who starts talking to everyone. Like you said, if someone has to go there and talk, not keep issuing statements from here and things like that. And let's see if it comes out, because we had this opportunity once in the Ukraine war, which we desisted from, taking that step forward. But in this case, I think the strategic, yeah, please.
Sir, Russia-Ukraine war, I can still understand is a far-off game.
Yeah, yeah. But
West
not
Asia
yet.
is the most important geography for
Oh yeah,
us.
yeah, yeah. We the more that's what my next sentence was, where we have strategic equity here, and we have domestic equity also in that place, because a lot of our diaspora are working there. In fact, people have settled this. The second, third generation have settled out there in many places, and a lot of our people have contributed to the growth of the Middle East and the wider Gulf in a large thing.
True.
So you have huge stakes out there, and that gives us the strength. It's not only it might be a vulnerability, but it gives us strength, and it imposes a certain amount of conditionality on us that we have to respond to the situation more proactively than what we have done hitherto. And I go with you 100% on that. On that, there's no doubt. Right. So my question to General Gautam Murthy, and we'll finish this round at this, and then we'll sum up what we have. Uh, what difficulties do you think India will face in its overall strategic outlook on two facets? One, what do you think is the difficulty it's going to face when it steps out and goes as a mediator in this kind of a condition? And second, how does its own strategic outlook change in its own rise, and how do we handle that? Because that does not go away, and the problems for that will get compounded as this war keeps elongating, or rather gets more, complicated as days go by. Then Gautam Murthy, sir, your views on this?
Thank you. You have actually, in your introduction a little while ago, on this particular subject, after General Hasnain and Ambassador have spoken, you have yourself said, from being positively seen by both Israel and Palestine pre 7th October, we are now being seen less positively by both. That is your assessment of the situation. Primarily because now the two sides are so split apart, are so separated apart, thanks to this dastardly act by the Hamas, that they are not, that they see you batting for the other side. Now, that should not be the case. General Hasnain has very clearly brought out that our G20 status, that we have gone and we are now at the world stage. And I also had a look at your presentation of the Jaipur dialogues, where you had put across that India is actually now at the center table. There are four ends to the quadrilateral, and India is one of them. If this be so, India has to step in. India has to step in and has to play an honest broker to try and resolve this issue. How we see it within ourselves, how Pakistan looks at it, as far as I am concerned, uh, Pakistan is really a non-player, because Pakistan is not trusted by the Israelis. I mean, absolutely not. And neither, apart from paying lip service to the Palestinians, you don't find Pakistanis volunteering to go and fight there. They've got enough problems on their hands, thanks to Baluchistan, thanks to the Durand line. And they know very well that they cannot do anything towards India. But at the same time, let me also bring to everyone's notice that we know the Jamaat-e-Islami chief of Pakistan, Sirajul Haq. He has visited Tehran recently, and he has sort of tried to put across a kind of unity between the Shias and the Sunnis, quoting Maududi as well as Khomeini. And he says the Ummah is one. He, of course, deplored the killing of the innocent people of Gaza, and he has hit out at the OAC and the international community for having failed to stop Israel from what it is doing. So you have this problem over here that Pakistan, apart from the main players making the right noises, President Alvi and the caretaker Prime Minister, you have this gentleman who has gone to Tehran and who's trying to put things across. Geostrategically, Pakistan cannot be much of a player in this game. I don't see it playing any role. But yes, India has a hugely important role to play. And the next 2 days will actually tell us, as Ambassador Trigunayat has brought out, with the 2+2 dialogue taking place. I guess most of it will be taken up more on this issue than on anything else. Of course, the cooperation issues are there on the table that would be discussed. That's all I have to say on this.
Thank you, sir. I think you put all three of you have put a few issues. If I may sum it up, we have an external responsibility on our hand and an internal concern based on this, conflict which has come about the way it is moving. The external responsibility for India as a growing power is to ensure that how can we navigate this entire story to some modicum of peace or get warring at least to talk together. Whether they are prepared to talk or not is something else. We need to be seen to be making an effort. And for that, like all of us will do agree, we have to step up to the situation. Otherwise, we will not be the power which we want to be. If you want to be on and the center table or on the table on the Committee of Nations, as when you want UN reforms, part of the reform is you have to reform it through your actions, just not by your requirements or just saying that I have to be part of that story. And then, of course, you need to, for that, the next part of the story is you need strategic communication, a good strategic communication to get there. And the third, I think, which is based on my experience, because I've been covering this almost every second, third day in some form or the other, and a whole lot of people have, come up here with varying opinions across, because we also have a huge variety of opinions from the far left to the far right. I think there is also a requirement for the government to articulate its stand and prepare ground domestically so that things don't go bad before it steps out and starts taking a step outside. And that is something which the government has to reflect upon how it does it. I'll not say how it does it. I'm not going to be prescriptive to the government, but I think there is a requirement to do so. The next issue is internally, because this whole story mirrors somewhere in Pakistan and it strikes chords, and it could be a domino effect, like a lot of people have been asking about this. So if a disruption does take place, I think it's time we started thinking about it as to how to forestall it. And if you cannot forestall it, and if disruption does take place, you need to anticipate your reactions, or rather have wargame your reactions, like what General Hasnain said. And you need to have strategic patience. If we have the major lesson I've learned, at least I have learned from this whole story is, and from our own successes dealing with, I wouldn't say similar circumstances, but equivalent, militant and terrorist situations is you need to have strategic patience. You need to have strategic patience to act and not react, and not react emotionally, but act cool-headedly with a plan, and that has come out loud. And I do remember General Vinod Bhatia giving out a solution, or rather a thought process in the Gaza dialogues, as Israel should have absorbed the problem, then gone and built, international opinion, and then done as per a plan. Probably they would have got better results, but this is talking in hindsight. And of course, uh, we need to have a strategic response pattern. And this strategic response pattern, I think, should start day before yesterday. And because all strategic response patterns need not be active, need not be physical. A whole lot of it is in the strategic thinking and playing into the minds of the Pakistanis, and so that they are kept at bay. And last but not the least, I would also dare say that this should not, we should also keep our powder dry against the Chinese, lest they finger the LAC, because this could be ideal time when everyone expects the Chinese to do something in the Taiwan or the South China Sea area, and we are all committed this side. They could do something like Yangtze or something, because even for the Chinese to get a rock on the LAC is showing India down, and that itself is a great issue, and we have to keep our ideas open. So, with this, I have finished today's dialogue. I think I'm enriched at the end of the day. If you permit, I'll take a few questions. If you're constrained for time, I'll pass them over.